I have seen it, Grima. Our next wargame.
Steve, you know looking into the club's palantir is dangerous.
Why? Why should we fear it?
Because they are not all accounted for, the seeing stones. We don't know who is watching. Fantasy gaming isn't allowed in the club.
The hour is later than you think, Grima. Helm's Deep will fall today.
But Steve, even if we wanted to game Helm's Deep, that would take figures beyond what we have. That would take thousands.
Tens of thousands!
There is no such force, Steve.
A new power is rising! Its victory is at hand! To war!
It's one of the most iconic battles from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings saga, one of the greatest battle sequences ever put to film in Peter Jackson's trilogy. Today on Little Wars TV, we're fighting Helm's Deep in an epic 10mm scale on the stunning miniature tabletop.
Zach, don't you mean the Battle of the Hornburg?
No, I mean the Battle of Helm's Deep. Isn't it?
That depends on who you ask, Tolkien or Jackson. Before our war game, we'll explore the key differences between J.R.R. Tolkien's book version of the battle and Peter Jackson's movie version. The book and the movie present two very different portrayals. The forces involved, the heroes present, and the course of the battle are not the same.
So are we playing Tolkien's version of the battle or Jackson's?
We couldn't decide, so we're playing both. In terms of pure visual styling, you can see our model is almost an exact replica of the movie. Almost.
Our model does have a few subtle differences, and they are intentional. In a future channel video, we'll show you how we made this table and why we decided to add some unique customizations. It won't surprise you to learn that the movie depiction of Helm's Deep is, visually, not all what J.R.R. Tolkien imagined the fortress would look like.
No, but I think the guys here at the club really love the look of Jackson's world and how he portrayed the Battle of the Hornburg.
There's less agreement in the club of how Jackson changed the rest of the battle, and he changed a lot.
The differences between the book and the movie radically alter the potential setup of our armies on the tabletop. In the book, Tolkien says Helm's Deep is defended by a garrison of 1,000 men under the acting captain, Gamling. Theoden arrives with another 1,000 riders from Edoras, mostly veteran soldiers.
In the movie, the defending force is far smaller. Legolas claims that Rohan has just 300 soldiers, mostly young boys and old men. Then, to much everyone's surprise, a horn sounds.
Send for the king. Open the gate!
The arrival of the elves on the eve of battle is a complete invention for the film. No numbers are given, but it certainly looks like there are hundreds of them ranked on and behind the Deeping Wall. That means in the movie there are more elves defending Helm's Deep than men.
In both the book and the movie, Gandalf arrives at dawn with much needed reinforcements, but that's where the similarities end.
In Tolkien's book, Gandalf brings 1,000 infantry under Erkenbrand, one of the marshals of Rohan. But in the movie, Erkenbrand's role is filled by Eomer, and that 1,000 infantry turn into, how many cavalry you think that is? It's a lot of mounted Rohirrim.
In the book, Eomer is present, but he's inside the fortress the entire time. In fact, he fights shoulder to shoulder with Aragorn. Remember that scene in the movie where Aragorn tosses Gimli onto the ramp? It's a fun scene, but in the book, it's Eomer who joins Aragorn for that heroic moment.
So immediately, as we design our scenario, we're faced with conflicting orders of battle between the book and the movie. How many Rohirrim are in the garrison? Thousands or just 300? Elves or no elves?
I'm afraid we'll face similar questions figuring out Isengard's army as well. In the movie, Aragorn claims it's a force of 10,000 Uruk-hai. Oddly, many of them are armed with pikes, not exactly the weapon of choice for storming a castle.
Tolkien agrees on the overall numbers, about 10,000, but he describes Isengard's host as including significant numbers of wildmen, along with a mixed force of orcs, wargs, and Uruk-hai. Isengard's army is more varied and interesting in the book, and I think we should follow that in our scenario.
Yeah, what about the defenders?
Here too, I favor staying true to Tolkien. That means 2,000 experienced defenders.
I like it. What about the elves?
Their appearance is probably the most controversial change from the book, and as a book purist, I don't love it. But once again, I'd lean toward injecting as much drama as possible for our scenario, and that means a randomized die roll on the eve of battle. There won't be as many elves as Jackson included, but we'll leave their arrival to chance.
I like borrowing from the book and the movie, and also adding some uncertainty for the players.
Yeah, and if you'd like to download our free scenario for Helm's Deep, please go to our website and check out the free section. We're using Warmaster, the mass battle game released by Games Workshop. Even though GW stopped supporting the game over a decade ago, it remains popular among players and inspired a fan-made reprint. You can download the entire game for free.
The original Warmaster was written by legendary game designer Rick Priestley. We'll be talking to Rick in the weeks ahead about Warmaster's rise, fall, and surprising resurgence.
I think Warmaster was, in many ways, both the victim and the expression of all the changes that were going on. You have to remember, when we did the buyout in 1991, I think it was, I think the company was bought for £10 million.
We'll go behind the scenes at Games Workshop to find out what really happened with Warmaster and why the game fizzled out. But for now, let's talk about the Warmaster scenario we designed for today's battle. Helm's Deep is your classic last stand. The defenders must hold out for 10 game turns until dawn breaks and Gandalf arrives to save the day. They have very limited resources to hold the fortress, and 3 heroes. Gimli and Legolas operate as a single pair in our scenario. Isengard commands 18 units, but may recycle their losses freely, effectively making their host limitless. Saruman is not physically present at the battle, but can influence the scenario through his sorcery at the Tower of Orthanc. To capture Helm's Deep, Isengard must take these banner locations. These are objectives scattered about the fortress at strategic points. Every location is worth 1 victory point, except the pathway to the Glittering Caves, which is worth 2 victory points. Rohan's women and children are sheltering in the caves. Once Isengard captures at least 6 victory points, the defenders must start making a die roll to succumb to fear and despair. Isengard can win an automatic victory if all the objectives are captured, if all of the heroes are killed, or if Rohan fails a fear and despair break test.
Okay, my lord, it seems that we have 3 options of siege preparations. We can either get the siege works, trolls, or you can gaze into the Palantir.
I have already gazed into the Palantir and see that its power in this game will only come into play if it's close. This will not be close.
In their menu of pre-battle decisions, Steve and Turhan elect to take siege mantlets and an additional ballista. All of their units are equipped with ladders, they have a battering ram, and of course they have a bomb. This bomb can be used to explode the culvert, or it can be used against the main gate if they choose.
Hey everyone, I'm Zach, and I'll be playing King Theoden.
I'm Tom, I'll be playing Aragorn.
And we just saw the dire situation that we're facing here in Helm's Deep and defending the Hornburg.
Yeah, it's a fine situation.
Oh. How did it come to this? So, yeah, we don't have enough troops to cover all the spots, and we're going to have to sell our lives bitterly, I think.
That we will do.
10 turns. A single stand in the keep, holding on to hope,
That's right.
could make it.
Will Rohan's task be aided by the arrival of Haldir and the elves like in the film? Zach rolls on this table to see if the elves arrive in time.
Come on. 1.
Already the shadow lengthens. There will be no elves in today's game. But Zach and Tom can make some hasty preparations. They may place 3 obstructions to delay the enemy for 1 turn, and smartly choose to block the culvert, the ramp, and 1 section of the deeping wall. They spread out their defenders on a wide frontage, unwilling to concede any easy victory point locations to the attackers. Their best unit, Theoden's Mounted Royal Guard, is held in reserve beyond the deeping wall as a counter-attacking force. With the armies arrayed for battle, it's time to begin.
So it begins.
The host of Isengard surges forward under a shower of arrows. Without ranks of elite elves to bolster their defenses, the men of Rohan can manage only a weak volley. These are of little use, driving back a few units of orcs in a vast sea of enemies. By turn 2, the Uruks are already raising ladders against the deeping wall. In front of the Hornburg, a large battering ram slowly rolls closer and closer to the main gate. As turn 3 begins, we're all wondering the same question. Where will Saruman deploy his new fire and brimstone? Will he attempt to blow the culvert, or will Steve try and rewrite the story by blowing apart the main gatehouse? Tom gambles on the traditional culvert location, placing Legolas and Gimli on the deeping wall. In the scenario, the nearby presence of these characters forces Isengard into a penalty on their detonation roll. Hedging his bets just in case, Tom positions Aragorn halfway between the culvert and the gatehouse so that his hero can respond to either location. Characters in Warmaster are not overpowering in the same way as they often dominate Warhammer. This is by design. In an army-level game like Warmaster, characters can issue orders to move units or groups, they can attach and give bonuses to combat, and sometimes they have their own special abilities. In this scenario, Aragorn has the Ring of Barahir, which allows him to reroll one failed command test every turn. Sure enough, on turn 3, Turhan reveals the bomb in the culvert and tries to ignite it. He would normally need to roll a 2 or better, but with Legolas nearby, he must roll a 4 or higher to ignite it.
You ran up there, so you can roll to blow the culvert. Okay, yes.
All units within a base width of the explosion are immediately killed, friend or foe. Legolas and Gimli are hurled from the wall but survive. The explosion not only breaches the deeping wall, it clears room on an adjacent wall section for the Uruk-hai units to climb up their ladders. Isengard captures its first victory location. It's a grim moment for the men of Rohan, but just 7 turns remain, and Saruman is still a long way from capturing all the necessary locations he needs to take the fortress.
We have a video coming up soon showing you how we made this custom fortress model, but now is a good time to mention our miniatures. The guys in the club have a vast collection of 10mm fantasy armies, a scale that Games Workshop cemented as the standard for fantasy mass battles with Warmaster. That scale persists in popularity with both traditional casters like Copplestone and 3D sculptors like Forest Dragon and Wake's Emporium. Our Lord of the Rings armies include lots of Copplestone metal figures, but increasingly we've been printing and painting the Wake's Emporium files. If you're a fan of the movies, his Isengard and Mordor factions look fantastic. He's constantly releasing new stuff, with Mumakil and Athelian Rangers coming out next. He's a small independent sculptor who deserves way more attention.
If you don't own a resin printer yourself, a lot of our guys use John Hunter's Etsy shop, Filament Resin Hunter. He's a licensed printer for Wake's Emporium miniatures. Quality is very high and his turnaround is excellent. This is not a sponsored plug, we just get lots of viewers who ask where they can order resin miniatures, and John's shop is based out of North Carolina. Let us know in the comments if you'd like us to do a follow-up video focusing on where we source our 10mm fantasy armies, the different vendors, how they compare, and places for you to buy terrain. Places like ROK Minis, they're a UK-based 3D printer selling Helm's Deep kits. We have a ton of info we can share if you guys are interested in building up your own collections. There are so many hidden gems in little corners of the internet where you can get cool Lord of the Rings miniatures and buildings in 10mm scale.
Let's get back to the battle. As we begin turn 4, the deeping wall is compromised and Isengard is pouring through the breach. Tom has a lone unit of Levy bowmen isolated on the far end of the deeping wall, facing certain death.
We got 2.
1, 2, 3.
3, and we got 2 on you. Save none. So we take 3, so lose stand.
What did I need? I didn't save them because they have no armor.
So you still win because you did 3 to us.
Yep.
We did 2. So
They're feisty.
I'll tell you, those bowmen.
Push
Been
back
holding
on.
firm. For unarmored bowmen.
Against all odds, the levy bowmen repel the Uruks swarming their position. At the opposite end of the deeping wall, Tom attaches Aragorn to a unit of veteran Rohirrim, crashing into the flank of the orcs climbing up their ladders. Aragorn smashes the orcs and rolls down the rampart into the next enemy formation.
So you can pursue one more time, and we'll fight one more combat.
With the 6 of my dice?
Yep.
All right.
Do you want to do it one more time?
Do the casualties carry over?
They do.
So I had one from
Yeah.
previous one, right?
Jesus, Rohan.
God. I got 4 hits.
Aragorn leading those Rohirrim to hold the door.
We counterattack twice.
Combat in Warmaster is simple. A unit rolls 1 6-sided die per attack, typically looking for a 4 or higher. That roll can be made easier or harder depending on factors like flanking or defended positions. Combat is simultaneous, and a unit can save hits against it by rolling its armor rating or higher. In the case of the Uruk-hai, that's a 5 or better to save. If the Uruks suffer 3 hits in a turn, they lose a stand of figures. The side that suffered more unsaved hits in a melee is driven back. Aragorn has bought Rohan some time on the deeping wall, but Isengard is pouring through the Culvert breach. Worse yet, on turn 5 the battering ram splinters the main gate open, triggering the gatehouse objective banners to fall to Isengard. A major decision looms for Zack and Tom. They're just halfway to Gandalf's arrival and are already considering whether to continue contesting the deeping wall to buy some time or to pull everything back into the Hornburg. The scenario intentionally makes this a difficult choice, because pulling back prematurely means giving up at least 3 more victory points and exposing a 4th. After a quick debate, Tom and Zack agree to hold the line just a bit longer. Theoden's best unit, his personal royal guard, is the only available reserve to stem the tide. As the closest commander to them, Aragorn issues the order. He normally needs a 9 or less to command, but he's still far enough away to incur a -1 penalty. Unless you're within initiative distance of an enemy, units in Warmaster must receive an order from a commander to be allowed to move. For this critical charge, Tom needs to roll an 8 or less to send the Royal Guard into the fray.
8! Okay, and so with a cry and the flashing white-tailed plumed horse helms, the Royal Guard
I hear music swelling. You hear
goes
music
to
swelling?
sweep the face of that wall.
The cavalry crash into the enemy and annihilate not 1, but 2 enemy units from the backside of the deeping wall. This is a good example of a major rule change in Warmaster Revolution from the original game. In original Warmaster, attackers could take unlimited follow-up attacks as long as they kept destroying enemy units. In Warmaster Revolution, attackers are limited to a maximum of 3 rounds of combat. If you want to hear more about Revolution and how the game has evolved since its release in 2000, we have interviews coming up not only with Rick Priestley, but also with members of the current Warmaster Revolution Rules Committee. We owe Turhan Elby, a friend playing in today's game, a huge thank you for introducing us to the active and vibrant Revolution community. At Helm's Deep, Aragorn's heroics and the Royal Guard's reckless charge have bought valuable time, but Isengard is still on the move. On turn 6, the undefended entrance to the Glittering Caves is captured, securing 2 more victory points. Could Theoden's Royal Guard have been better employed defending this valuable location? Zack and Tom never really considered it, but I wonder if they should have. Inside the Hornburg, Steve rushes troops through the main gate. Theoden is ready for them. The king mounts his horse and orders the horn of Helm Hammerhound to sound in the deep.
Fell deeds awaken, now for wrath, now for ruin, now for the Red Dawn, forth Erlingus!
Once per game, Theoden can blow the horn of Helm Hammerhand and give all Rohan units +1 combat bonus. It's a powerful boost, but limited to only 1 turn. Theoden drives the Uruks out of the Hornburg, shattering 1 unit and pushing another unit onto the ramp. And just outside the citadel, Aragorn still holding the end of the deeping wall, leading a single stalwart unit of dismounted Rohirrim. The narrow choke point is a perfect defensive position, making it impossible for Turhan to bring his numerical advantage to bear.
Jesus Christ, Rohan.
I thought I earned the right.
4 hits.
You're losing it now.
4 hits.
But on turn 7, the watchtower at the extreme opposite end of the deeping wall is finally overwhelmed. This is significant because Isengard now controls 6 victory points, the minimum number required to start forcing Rohan to roll for fear and despair. In our scenario, Rohan must roll to lose hope every time they lose an objective from now on. Here's what they need to roll to continue the fight. As Isengard takes more and more of the fortress, the roll becomes more challenging. If Rohan fails a roll, they are allowed to sacrifice 1 hero to attempt a reroll. On turn 7, Theoden must make the first fear and despair test of the game.
If you want to come use your wizard claws to hex my dice while you do this, it's perfectly
Roll a 1.
Yeah.
It's 1d6, right?
1d6?
Roll a 1.
What do I gotta roll?
Don't roll a 1.
Roll a 1.
Not.
Roll a 6. You want a 6.
Come on. Pony!
1. Victory is at hand!
Damn you, Saruman!
After failing the roll, Tom and Zack have no choice but to sacrifice a hero to continue the game. They choose Legolas and Gimli, who operate in this scenario as a single team. The elf and dwarf give their lives side by side, overwhelmed by a sea of orcs and rooks.
I don't know about you, Theoden, but I'm tired of that little shtick they're running. We're going to just get rid of those two.
They wouldn't stop counting.
They bought us time.
It is now turn 8. Gandalf will arrive and save the day in just 3 more turns, but that feels like an eternity. The Royal Guard is slowly being forced back towards the Hornburg's rear entrance, and Tom weighs whether it is time for Aragorn to abandon his toehold on the deeping wall. The decision is made more difficult by the devastating firepower of Isengard's ballista, which by now have helped clear every Rohan unit off the deeping wall except Aragorn's. The noose tightens further when Steve brings a fresh brigade up the ramp, led by fanatical berserkers. When these units cut their way inside the main gate, Tom finally decides Aragorn is needed inside the Hornburg. He and Theoden move to block the ramp. It's turn 9, and a faint light can be seen over the White Mountains. Gandalf will be here soon. The turn begins with Steve launching a fresh attack inside the Hornburg, where his berserkers meet Aragorn head-on in a climactic showdown.
So falls Isildur's heir. What will you do now, Gandalf Greyhame?
Lord Aragorn. Where is he?
In a shocking turn, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, heir to the kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor, falls heroically in combat. His last stand temporarily checks Steve's advance. Moments later, outside the Hornburg, the Royal Guard is finally crushed by a wave of Uruks who storm up the winding steps into the rear entrance. A lone unit of militia spearmen remains to hold them back. Theoden now stands alone, the last remaining hero as we enter the 10th and final turn. Steve and Turhan know that dawn is about to break. To win the game, they must kill Theoden now, or capture more victory locations to force break tests. Here are the 2 nearest objectives. Capturing either one will force Rohan to roll again for fear and despair.
Seeing Aragorn get cut down, the orcs streaming in, he rides back into the citadel, calling for a last defense in the redoubt.
Where's my Lord Aragorn? Everyone asks.
Yeah.
While he lives, there is still hope.
They'll ride into here
You gonna dismount?
and dismount.
With so few men left to defend Helm's Deep, Zack makes a painful decision to withdraw to the upper courtyard. He's abandoning an easy victory location to Steve's berserkers, desperately hoping that he can pass one more break test before Gandalf arrives. He will need a 3 or better to pass.
3. All right.
All right.
There's nothing else to be done. Hold the steps.
The halls of your fathers await.
Yeah.
The end of turn 10 is now in sight. With Theoden safely shuttered inside the upper courtyard, Saruman has only one path to victory. He needs his able lieutenant Turhan to capture the banner at the entrance of the Hornburg and force Zack into another, even harder break test.
Yeah, now it's just cinematic movement at this point. Yeah, there's 2 stands of Rohirrim left.
Turhan throws another unit of Uruk swordsmen into battle, aided by a spell from Saruman. In our scenario, Saruman is not physically present, but he's still able to influence the battle by casting 1 spell per turn from his menu of options. Steve calls a swarm of birds to descend on the militia spearmen, giving them a combat penalty. It's enough to tip the scales, and while the militia are not outright destroyed, they are driven back far enough for Turhan to claim the objective location. Another banner for the White Hand is raised.
And it's time for another roll.
This time, Zack will need a 4 or better to hold.
So it's come to this. Pony.
1.
All right, that's it.
Victory is at hand! Lords have long been a thorn in the side of the tower.
Well, that was a doozy.
Yeah,
That's hard fought.
It was.
The Fellowship is totally broken apart now, with Aragorn gone.
And you guys almost ran out of orcs. It's just, the fact that there's that huge atmospheric army back there, just for fun, is ridiculous. It wasn't actually an intimidation factor during the game.
Yeah, so the challenge in this game, of course, for Isengard is there's only so much space where you can stick those orcs. And access points that you guys did an excellent job of defending.
Yep.
I mean, Aragorn's stand at that one side wall there, side entrance, was absolutely amazing. It was very, very satisfying for my berserkers to cut him down. I will tell you that.
Now, the heroes made a huge difference. That was the fun part of it. They really were very key to the game for the defenders, certainly.
I think the hero that made the biggest difference is Gandalf, because he's just a little late.
Oh, great game.
Absolutely.
Absolute game. It was a lot of fun.
Great job, guys.
The power of Isengard is at your command. Sauron, Lord of Earth.
Build me an army worthy of a campaign.
What news from Mordor, my lord? What does the Eye command?
We have work to do.